Today is a really significant milestone for about 7,000 people here in Northern Ireland who are living with ME, to give it its full name, myalgic encephalomyelitis. This is the very first World ME Day, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome in some places. ME is a complex medical condition affecting multiple body systems. It affects everyone differently. For some people, the symptoms still allow them to carry out some normal activities, whereas for others, it can be completely overwhelming. It can dramatically change your life. If you've been living with ME, some of you have gotten in touch with us already, I see, on 81771. Just tell us what it's been like and whether you've been able, this is really important, whether you've been able to get the care and the treatment that you need. That's our big focus today. Are we doing enough to help those who are struggling with this really serious condition? We'll get into that in a minute. The phone lines are there for you, 03030 80 55 55. First, though, with his story of living with ME, this is Dr. Francis Tinney, an academic and a clinical psychologist whose life was turned upside down in 2006.
My life before the 6th of April 2006, I was the happiest, healthiest person that I knew. I was very big into swimming, very big into outdoor pursuits, fishing, canoeing, boating. I practiced yoga every day. I was the envy of all my friends, and they openly told me so. And I had a job that I absolutely loved. I loved my job. I loved going to it. There's very, very few people who could say that. So there was absolutely nothing going on in my life that I could say that was even a stressor. I was just so happy. I was in the middle of research, and I was visiting one of our politicians, at Spurs family, because he's now dead. And whenever I came out of his office, there was a gentleman there who was a journalist from Ghana. And he spoke remarkable clear English, and our local politician had said to me, "Are you going back to Belfast, Francis?" And I said, "No." I said, "Just a bit late in the day and going home to Glenavan." He said, "Oh, this man here," he says, "he just flew in from Ghana yesterday. He's a journalist and he's not feeling well." Well, you know what we're like here in Northern Ireland. You know, we sometimes are hesitant about doing something for the man next door, but we'll do something for a total stranger. And I said, "What's wrong?" He says, "I'm not feeling well." He says, I'm staying in the Wellington Park Hotel, directly facing the David Kerr building, directly facing my office. And I thought, come on ahead and I'll get you back again. But he looked unwell, he looked sick, he looked ill, and he didn't talk. And he was in my car for about an hour and a quarter, and I brought him back to the Wellington Park Hotel, went in and said, "This man is one of your guests. I think he needs to see a doctor." Next day, whatever he had, I had it. It was some type of a virus, obviously. And within about 2-3 days, I was right off my feet. They brought me into hospital. Things just spiraled out of control. I was taken away from home for 6 months, but in and out of hospital. 19 operations, 11 procedures. You heard that right, 19. While it started to attack all the different parts of the body, you know. And I got back home again after about 6-7 months, and I looked like something that come out of a gulag or a concentration camp. I was down to about 7.5 stone. You know, even simple, I couldn't even brush my teeth. I couldn't peel an orange. I couldn't eat. When I did eat, I couldn't. I was so weak that my digestive system wouldn't even work.
Did they ever get to the bottom of what the virus was?
No, they carried a thing called viral teeters, but that's like looking for a needle in a haystack that's in a haystack type of thing, you know. Because it was something foreign, you know, and it had long since passed, but it was the damage it had done, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, but because I went to the beginning, they said, "Oh, you've got a virus," you know, and they didn't bother kind of look. They looked for the general viruses and didn't find nothing, and then I just went downhill so rapidly. And
when did they give you the diagnosis of ME?
Do you know that absolutely nobody? There was no ME clinic here, so absolutely nobody has given me that. I had to get that privately.
Did that change life for you? Were you able to target treatments or get the care that you needed once you have the diagnosis?
Whenever I tried to target treatment here, two things happened. I had to keep on paying for my treatment because there was no ME clinic here. There used to be an ME clinic here, but it closed down about a year after I took ME, in about sometime around 2007. And the treatment that they had offered was cognitive behavioural therapy and graded exercise therapy, which latterly became banned. It was by court because it was killing the people. You would not send cancer patients out to run up and down. Why would you send a person with ME? And then they said, "Oh, it's all in your mind, it's all in your head." But just in case it's not, don't be giving blood. We had a blood ban put on us for something that was supposed to be in our minds. And it took years of court fight and court battles, not by me, but by because I just didn't have the energy to do it. But I done a bit here in Northern Ireland, and of
course you're up against a lot of public misunderstanding, stigma, stereotyping as well.
Absolutely, it was much more to do with the public. It wasn't even the public disbelief; it was the medical disbelief. Yes, there was public disbelief as well, and then you also got the disbelief from places like the DHSS and stuff. As if I would give up a job at £85,000 a year so as I can claim 90 quid of the benefits. I remember putting this to my GP, a decent person, and she said to me, "If I thought that you'd done that," she said, "I would have you sectioned." They said, the whole idea is ludicrous.
Do you feel like you are believed now?
I still believe the jury is out. I believe my family and friends because they know the person that I was before. And for this to happen instantaneously, and for me to go down to 7.5 stone, for me to have 19 operations and 11 procedures, you can't make all that up. But yet you still encounter complete disbelief.
What is your life now like?
Today, well, I'm talking to you in bed today. The last 13 days, I've been confined to bed. I would mostly spend somewhere between 20 and 21 hours a day in bed. If I go to do anything that has exertion involved at all, I use mobility scooters in order just to get around. I want to get around the house. I had to, one for getting about. I have to be taken everywhere. Everything is to do surrounds resting. I cannot, even after this conversation, I'm sure that I'd have to lie down. While I'm in bed, I have to put my head down on the pillow for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, because you end up with brain fog. It's like thinking through treacle. Oh. You're trying, you want to do the things, you get up to do them, and the next thing is you're falling off your feet.
That is the author and academic Dr. Francis Tinney there. And I should explain, we coordinated that interview with Francis. As you can hear, he was in bed while he gave the interview, but we allowed him to tell us which morning or afternoon he felt able to do the interview, because as anyone who has ME knows, you have good days and you have bad days, and you often have a whole spate of bad days back after back. So we're so grateful to Francis. It must have been exhausting for him, but he did it for us anyway. Joan McParland is with us, founder and voluntary coordinator at Hope for ME and Fibro NI, and Dr. Charles Shepherd, medical advisor to the ME Association. Guys, good to have you back. Welcome to both of you. And Joan, you know exactly what that's like, the good days and the bad days.
I wouldn't even... First of all, thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to us to get coverage on the First World ME Day. It's just... I'm quite overwhelmed. But anyway... you described there, William, good days and bad days. I would describe them more as bad days and worse days. If you're up for a couple of hours, just exactly as Francis described, I experienced the same thing. A sudden onset virus, previously fit and healthy, boom, end of family life, social life, career gone, everything. And I hear that story every single day of the week from various patients who were affected the same way. And I would be celebrating, if you could call it that, 22 and a half years this year. So
And as you say, Joan, I mean, one of the things...
Because it'll just be repetition all day. We all experience this. What we want to do now is... I know the health service is in an awful state, but we have been campaigning from 2011, and my entire energy for a week would have went into travelling to Belfast to have a meeting, and another meeting, and another meeting, and that went on and on.
Yeah.
And promises broken, pledges broken, but we worked with really genuinely good people in the Public Health Agency and that, and the Patient Client Council, who made headway and really wanted to help us. I remember being at a conference we held in Stormont. We've done 14. We've brought every clinician and researcher on the planet to Northern Ireland to educate people here. It was the head of the Patient Client Council. I overheard her. I wasn't listening. I overheard her when I was going past, and she said, "I did not realise these people were so ill."
Yeah.
And from that day, she fought tooth and nail and really moved things forward in Northern Ireland. It's just the word. I don't know. Really, I don't know what happened. There were two spectacular failures. There was an ME consultant actually employed, and he held it on, I think it was about 16 months. I'm talking through treacle, as Francis described it here, William. Sorry.
Well, let me break in for a second, because we were in touch with the Department of Health to try and understand some of this. Why we don't have any kind of specialist clinic? Yeah. Why we don't have a clinical lead, in fact, here in Northern Ireland for ME? And they've given us some answers. For example, they do tell us, that's where we get the 7,000 figure from. They say they estimate 25,000 cases in the UK, which would equate to around 7,000 cases in Northern Ireland. I mean, the figures can go up and down. Obviously, we're not quite sure how detailed we can be about the figures. Let me just put out the information, though, first, Joan.
Yes,
and we did ask them directly, why don't we have a clinical lead? Why don't we have a specialist working with ME patients here? And they say the Belfast Trust has sought to recruit a medical lead with a special interest in ME without success. So they say they've been trying. So that suggests they've got the funding. They suggest they're trying to get it, but they haven't been able to persuade someone with an interest in ME to be a medical lead in this area. We asked them if there is a specialist in Northern Ireland dealing with the issue, and if there isn't, when they expect to get one. Their answer was the department will continue to work with all stakeholders, including service users and carers, to consider any options brought forward to provide a medically led service. So I'll take that as a no, but they're open to conversation. Does the department have any statistics around the current waiting lists for people trying to get a diagnosis around ME? Their answer to this was interesting. They say information is not coded in a way that would facilitate statistics around current waiting lists for diagnosis of ME. So let me bring in Charles, so Dr. Charles Shepherd. We don't have a metric, Charles, a coding system for working out how many people are out there in need of treatment, how many may be on a waiting list if we have a waiting list. And we don't have a waiting list because we don't even have a consultant lead or a consultant with a medical interest in the area to provide treatment if we knew how many people were there.
Yeah. I mean, I've been involved with Joan for many years on this, and I'm very familiar with the situation in Northern Ireland, and I think my conclusion here is that there is a serious failure of duty of care by the Northern Ireland Health and Social Care system and the healthcare boards in not providing a proper multidisciplinary hospital-based referral service with a proper clinical lead for dealing with these patients. There are serious issues, as we've heard from Francis, we've heard from Joan, very serious issues about getting an early and accurate diagnosis. I've been a member of the NICE Guideline Committee. We have a new NICE guideline on this illness. We have some very firm recommendations in this new guideline. We're saying that people with this illness should be diagnosed within 3 months of the onset of their symptoms, and then they should be given proper management advice. And it's perfectly clear that this is not happening in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
People are
now,
not
Charles,
getting this early diagnosis, and there's nowhere to refer them to.
when you say that there is a failure in the duty of care here, let me point out what they also say to us. They say to us when people have symptoms of ME, this is the Department of Health, and have contacted their GP, they should be offered treatments for their symptoms in line with the NICE guidelines. But it does say symptoms there, right? And the GP may refer the patient to specialists to exclude other potential underlying causes that may be involved in this case. So there will be some treatments offered if you go to your GP. The GP is the triage route. The problem is we don't have a clinical lead, and the impression one gets from their statement is it's because they've been unable to recruit one, not for want of trying, but unable to recruit one.
I mean, clearly there are difficulties here. But let me take you to the Isle of Man, not far away, where I'm involved with a really good initiative. Everyone is on board with this, from the patients to the public health people to the politicians. They want to get a clinical service moving. They've allocated, I think it's round about £500,000 to setting up a service. I think the population of the Isle of Man is about 100,000. And this is moving ahead. They are trying to appoint people to get into this service. There is a real determination to do something.
Right.
And certainly at the moment, because, as I say, the NICE guideline makes it very clear that people, once they've diagnosed in primary care or suspected of being diagnosed by a GP, then they should be referred on for specialist advice on management. So I really do hope that the Northern Ireland Health Department is now going to go back to this and comply with what is in a NICE guideline, because if they're not offering people in Northern Ireland this service, they're not complying with the NICE guideline, and NICE guidelines apply in Northern Ireland.
And can I ask, Pat, in terms of GPs involved in the triage, what level of care do you think you're getting from GPs? Are they able to help, to diagnose, to nudge people in the right direction?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Sorry, Joan. Yes.
Oh, sorry. There's a major problem there, because it's actually potluck when you go to a GP whether they believe the illness exists or not. So how can they diagnose an illness that they never got medical training on?
And that's your catch-22 right there.
The catch-22. Yeah. So patients, what other illness, multi-system, serious chronic illness, are patients left like we are to provide educational conferences, to deal with suicidal cases.
You're doing it for yourself.
Somebody goes to the doctor and they're told it's in their head. I had a suicidal call yesterday from a lady, but we're not equipped to deal with them. We pass them on to Lifeline or PIPS, and she's suffering from post-traumatic stress due to medical encounters. And I'm sorry, but that's the actual fact
just terrible. That is a sign of just how desperate people have become in these situations.
We have lost patients through suicide.
And William, if you don't have a clinical setup within a hospital dealing with this condition, you're not then filtering down what are the educational and learning needs on this to the general practitioners. They're not getting this information, this input on how to diagnose and manage with these patients, because there's no one at a specialist level telling them, advising them what to do.
Yeah, Charles, Claire in Belfast is saying she doesn't think the Trust pays enough for anybody in the UK to want to, or in GP to leave and come over here to provide this kind of care. What kind of specialists are we talking about? What kind of doctor would be involved in this kind of care, Charles? You're one of them, obviously.
Well, this is an illness which cuts across many medical boundaries. So I don't think we need to be too specific in which particular medical specialty needs to look after or needs to be the clinical lead. It needs to be a good general physician. There are some people who are still at a consultant level looking after a range of conditions, but it could be someone in infectious diseases, it could be someone in immunology, it could be someone in neurology, it could be someone in virology, because this illness cuts across so many different.
You could come at it from different points of view.
It doesn't have to be a specific ology.
Got it. Pat is from Ballygassoon, one of our regulars. How you doing, Pat?
How you doing, William? Fine.
Pat, do you have ME?
Well, as I am. Hello?
Hi, Pat. Do you have ME?
I do. I had it diagnosed back in 87, 88.
Goodness, I didn't know that, Pat.
I've learned to live with it, and it's but it's still there. So I need to watch myself, even at this late stage, because that's 40 odd years ago. And generally, so the indications to me are if I overdo it, either mentally or physically, I get a feeling of, sort of the oncoming of a relapse of that feeling of extreme tiredness, and I used to put it, not so much brain fog as your brain turned to porridge.
Yes.
And very thick porridge at that.
Good Lord.
The point that I was hoping to raise with you, William, is that shortly after I was living and working in London, and I was unfit to carry on with my work, and I came home to try and get my health back together again. And shortly after I came home, the what was going on my medical certificate, so I was on disability benefit at the time. The doctor changed the what was on the certificate to post-viral fatigue syndrome.
Right, right.
And that was the first indication from any source that it was a virus was behind my condition, that had contributed to my condition. And I note now, I may be wrong about this, but I understand that is now what they're terming long COVID.
Very similar in some cases, that's right. We've talked about this
very
before.
Similar. I would say, sort of strikingly similar,
Yeah.
In terms of fatigue and the brain fog and other, sort of on other, but those are the two main ones,
Pat, thank you very much. I've only got a couple of minutes left. I really appreciate. I didn't realise you were living with ME, and what you've described in terms of the post-viral context, very similar, obviously, to Francis Tinney, whose story we heard earlier. Pat, this is the very first World ME Day. Will that make a difference? Does that matter? How might it matter? Joan, sorry, I keep calling you Pat, Joan. I've got a bit of brain fog here because I've had some long COVID, frankly. Go ahead.
There's one thing I just want to say, and that's all. The health service needs to realise this is an ongoing but urgent patient safety issue. As Charles said, where early intervention and proper management gives patients who are identified with post-exertion malaise the best possible chance of improvement and can save them from a more severe form of the disease, as what happened to me and thousands of others who tried to push through it or were told to go out and exercise. And that needs to be addressed. We have had a breakthrough today because of World ME Day. 2 weeks ago, the charity wrote to all the public health agencies and Patient Complaint Council and everybody, and we requested for them to distribute information today from the World ME Alliance, who are spearheading this World ME Day, and we are members. And I'm quite gobsmacked today. Every organisation in Northern Ireland to do with health has shared it out.
Well, let's hope it, at the very least, raises some connections for networks for people to reach out to one another and talk about it and get some help, because too often the case people are suffering on their own in isolation. We want to deal with that as well. Joan, McParland and Dr. Charles Shepherd, thanks to both of you.